We begin in Washington, where the U.S. Senate has passed a bill to end the longest government shutdown in American history. Senators voted by 60 to 40 to approve the legislation to restore funding for federal agencies. The compromise would also stall President Trump's campaign to downsize the federal workforce. The deal still needs to be approved by the House of Representatives.
For government workers who haven't been paid in over a month, and for low-income Americans dependent on food aid payments, the end of the government shutdown can't come soon enough. After final passage of the deal to reopen the government in the Senate, the legislation now goes to the House, where Republican Speaker Mike Johnson says a vote could take place as soon as Wednesday. He'll have to rely on his slim Republican majority to pass the bill. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is among the Democrats critical of the Senate deal.
We're not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. And we're going to continue the fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Republicans are keen to abolish health care subsidies implemented during the Obama era. Democrats warn of rising health insurance bills if those subsidies are allowed to expire. Just a week ago, Democrats were celebrating off-year election wins as a repudiation of President Trump's policies. But the fight over health care has shown divisions remain over how best to push back against the president. In the meantime, Americans will continue to face disruption until the government is reopened. Airlines are warning it will take some time for operations to return to normal even after the shutdown ends.
Rosalyn Cooperman is a professor of political science and chair in the Department of Political Science and International Affairs at the University of Mary Washington in Virginia in the US. Welcome to DW. Do you think it is likely that having gone against the line, as it were, these eight senators will now succumb to pressure? Do you think that's likely?
You know, I don't know. My sense, so I'm here in Virginia, and so we have two Democratic senators. One who is up for re-election in 2026 is still voting no, right? He was not among that group that crossed over to support trying to find a deal, find a way back to end the government shutdown. The other senator was elected in 24, so is not facing voters, right, until 2030. In a state like Virginia, right, you have millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of employees in terms of the federal government workforce, right? You also have active duty military. And so, you know, the strain on states, particularly a state like Virginia, is one that is very keenly felt in this region and certainly in elsewhere. And so I think there's a lot of pressure to resolve the government shutdown, but at the same time, it's the issues at hand. What are the sticking points related to SNAP benefits, related to funding air traffic controllers, health insurance subsidies that are not? Those are issues that are not going to be easily resolved.
Let's talk about those SNAP benefits you mentioned, because the Trump administration has gone back to the Supreme Court to try and keep the full payments of those food aid programs frozen until the government, while the government is shut down. Which way do you expect the Supreme Court to jump on this one?
So if we're looking at SNAP, which is the Food Nutrition Assistance Program that's run in the United States, is a lifeline, right, to individuals. You've got over 42 million Americans rely on SNAP. You're talking about children, you're talking about families, you're talking about elderly citizens here in the United States. And this is something that is really, we're in uncharted territory, right? We've not had an administration essentially leverage or try to use not paying SNAP benefits, right? Making only partial payments to the states, which essentially administer the SNAP program. And so that in and of itself, I think is quite remarkable, right? You know, that you would have a federal government shutdown and an administration who's trying to block the payment of nutrition for families. In terms of how this plays out in the courts, you've had both the lower district federal court and then the court, a court of appeals essentially saying, no, even if the government is shut down, you can't block that funding that you send to states for administering the SNAP program. Trump is back, or solicitor from the counsel from the Trump administration is back in front of the Supreme Court to ask them to rule again, to give him that authority to essentially withhold those payments. And the initial the delay that the court had provided essentially was enough time, I think, for them to take a look at the issue. They're expected to rule tomorrow whether or not they will support, you know, the lower federal court rulings. I think I don't know who wants to be responsible essentially for saying we're not going to provide food assistance for fellow Americans. I don't know that the court wants to take the blame for that.
Final word on this whole notion of shutting the government down. How would you rate the use of shutdowns as a political weapon? Interesting to note that the two longest have happened under Donald Trump.
Certainly. Who wins? Nobody wins with this, right? In terms of political points scored, 2026, which is when a number of provisions with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed by Congress earlier this year go into effect. This is an election year. It's a midterm election year. We recently had elections in New Jersey, here in Virginia, and in New York City that did not bode well for Republican candidates, right? So, you know, you can talk about who wins, who loses, and then you've got the human cost and the economic cost for it. Shutdowns are devastating, right? You're talking about back pay for furloughed federal workers. You're talking about enormous disruptions. Right now, we have over 1,400 flights delayed today only, right? That will persist moving forward because air traffic controllers are overworked and under-rested. And in the interest of safety, the FAA decided that they would pull back significantly flights. So there are very real costs that are born, not just in terms of political gain, but in terms of actual economic gain that Americans will remember, I would imagine, come in the fall of 26 when they're thinking about voting.
Thank you for that, Professor Rosalyn Cooperman from the University of Mary Washington.
Thank you.